Yeah, hope everybody can hear me. My first time actually doing this on friend's computer here. All right. All right. And I'm sure y'all see the question here. Is integration the worst thing to ever happen to Black people? According to this article on the blackdetour.com, that's an absolute yes. All right. And I'm going to go through in this article how that is the case. First of all, I would like to say one of the things integration has done, it has caused us to be more dependent on the white system than being independent of the white system. With segregation, we had our own businesses. You know what I'm saying? We had our own, we pretty much had our own everything, for real, which is evident that you see in the Black Wall Streets. You know what I'm saying? We have our own, you know, so that's the main thing we should remember. As to why we don't need integration. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a read some parts of this article so I could get an idea as to what their thoughts on it is. You know what I'm saying? One part of the article I will read is, and it says here, after segregation ended, Black people were excited to support businesses owned by white people and other racial groups. Many Black people felt this way due to the fact that they believed they were missing out on something, so they wanted to support as many businesses as they could. As a result, many Black-owned businesses, theaters, insurance companies, and banks went out of business. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's annual survey of entrepreneurs, only 2.1% of businesses were Black-owned in 2014. And the next paragraph states, integration has not only hurt Black people financially, subconsciously, it has caused many to believe that Black people are beneath white people, thus causing many Black people to lose respect and love for one another. For example, some discredit or do not support anything associated with Black people, i.e. businesses, colleges, universities, and communities, as they believe these institutions are inferior. This is not a foreign concept. Rapper and activist David Banner stated on Sister Circle TV this past January, in which he quote, "I personally think that integration was the worst thing that ever happened to Black people, even more than slavery," end quote. Ultimately, there is a slippery slope in the idea that everything white is somehow better than anything Black, whether it is in school, business, or simply people believing in this ideology can be deemed as a form of self-hate. Although there are some positive and negative aspects surrounding integration, there is only one overwhelming reality that we all face today. Black people must start to support one another and unite as a people. This is probably, hey, good morning, John Lowe. Yeah, this is actually probably one of the best articles or blogs I've read. Yeah, on I've read on why integration was bad, was the worst mistake that has ever happened to our people since slavery. Now, these old civil rights heads, when they were thinking about integration, you know what I'm saying, wanting to be integrated with a people who are nothing like them, with a people who are not spiritual, who are not divine, who are artificially created from some man-made scientists, aka the devil. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what's going on, King Wage? I hear that, King Wage. It's cool, man. Yeah, since you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so these old civil rights heads, they ended up damaging themselves by thinking that they will be one with people who are nothing like them, people who are not spiritual, who are not divine, who are GMO. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah, no problem, all these dreams. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and read that again. Yeah. I think you were referring, yeah, I think it was that first paragraph that I read about after segregation ended. Yeah, I'm gonna read that paragraph again. Or you want me to read about how we were excited? Oh, yep. After segregation ended, Black people were excited to support businesses owned by white people and other racial groups. Many Black people felt this way due to the fact that they believed they were missing out on something, so they wanted to support as many businesses as they could. As a result, many Black-owned businesses in theaters, insurance companies, and banks went out of business. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's annual survey of entrepreneurs, only 2.1% of businesses were Black owned in 2014. Hey, how you doing, Dark Void? Good morning to you, brother. Good seeing you up in here. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So that was it right there. You know what I'm saying? These old civil rights heads thought that they were missing out on something. So that was their main reason for wanting to integrate. Now, another thing that the article didn't mention, and I believe Professor Black Truth has mentioned this, is that, oh, no, it was Jason Black, as a matter of fact, from the Black Authority. He mentioned that, these old civil rights heads, they wanted sexual access to white pussy as well. You know what I'm saying? As a way of them feeling in solidarity or being equal with these GMO people, with these people who are not spiritual nor divine, with these people who were not created in the not created in the image of the Creator, who were not created in the spirit of our ancestors, the spirit of the gods of our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? Those people that they want to be equal with. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's a fallacy of composition. Why would you, as a organically divine person, will want to be equal with somebody who's genetically inferior to you? You know what I'm saying? And these Caucasoids know this. They know that they're inferior to us, which is why they have to steal our meddling. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to find out ways to steal our meddling. They're already stolen some of our cells. Look at Henrietta Lacks. You know what I'm saying? They called her cells magic cells. I guess everything about us is magical, right? Like we don't bleed like everybody else bleed. You know what I'm saying? In which we do. But you can't tell a Caucasoid that. You know what I'm saying? Hold on, Darth Void. Let me good to see you in here, brother. Matter of fact, brother, let me go ahead and add you as a moderator, man. Yeah, I went ahead and added you as a moderator, Dark Void. You know what I'm saying? As a way, we got a fortress in case any of these trolls want to come up in here and say stuff. You know what I'm saying? We can, yeah, any one of y'all can knock them on out. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So that article, actually, that link is in the description box, in which y'all can read for yourselves. You know what I'm saying? If y'all want to share it, that's great too. I think I already shared it on my Twitter. If y'all follow me on Twitter, you would actually already seen that article. Hold on, let me matter of fact, let me see if I can put my Twitter handle. Yeah, let me go ahead and put my Twitter handle on here so y'all can case any of y'all want to follow, because I know August Dreams I follow. I know August Dreams follows me on Twitter, which is actually cool. You know what I'm saying? Hold on. Let me get that one to y'all again. I forgot the @ sign. Exactly, Augustine. Exactly. Is hey, good to see you in here, Stephanie. Yeah, how you doing? Good to see you in here. Blessings to you as well. Exactly, Stephanie. Know the integration, and like August Dream says, you know what I'm saying, that it's hard to wrap a head around how we were excited to spend our money with these Caucasoids and then in turn destroy our own businesses. That, you know, to really think about it, August Dreams, that is one of the most that is one of the most dumbest things that our people has ever done. That is really dumb. If you really think about it, that is like really dumb. I'm send to the A at Chalo too. Oh, okay, Chalo. I got you. I got you. Okay. Yeah, I got you on that. All right. Yeah, hold on. Let me go. Yeah, let me go ahead and yeah, let me go ahead and add you as well on my Twitter feed, on my as a follower on your thing, Chalo. That's what's up. All right, and I just followed you on Twitter. Yeah. Yeah. No problem, Lady of Soul. Yeah, y'all one of my loyal followers here. You know, had to put a force field in just in case any trolls come up in here. You know what I'm saying? Any one of y'all can knock them out, you know. Yeah. Good to see you in here, Lady of Soul. Definitely good to see you in here. Yeah. Good to see y'all here. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. So I was just saying to the family that integration is the worst thing our people have ever done. And like August Dream said, we actually have, hold on, let me go back up. August Dream said something very essential. One of the dumbest things we have ever done. She said it's hard to wrap my head around how we were excited to spend our money with them and in turn destroy our own businesses. You know what I'm saying? That is like very, very essential. Hey, what's going on, KD? Yeah, good seeing you up in here, brother. I was just talking about how integration has destroyed us as a people. Now, one of the things the article did not mention is how integration has how I say this, encouraged us to how it has allow us, I would say encourage, but allow us to have access to white pussy and white dick. You know what I'm saying? Real talk, man. And it has brought and one of the things it has brought to us is nothing but pain and misery. You know what I'm saying? Because we're actually working as indentured servants. You know what I'm saying? In these cracker establishments, if we work regular jobs. Now, if you have your own business, that's a different story. That's great. You know what I'm saying? So, and if you have your own business and have worked with an employer that worked in the employer in the cracker establishment, You understand exactly where I'm coming from on this. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Yeah, that's basically what it is, Lady Soul. It's a wee-wee. Yeah, might as well call it that. Exactly, KD. Exactly. And a lot of our people don't realize how weak they have become. They make their dysfunction, they treat their dysfunction as normal. Like this is how they're supposed to be. Well, we have to accept this as it is. And it shouldn't be that way. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be that way, but unfortunately, it is with a lot of our people. You know what I'm saying? A lot of our people are not really to really think a different way as to being liberated. You know what I'm saying? It's to not adopt all of this white supremacist ideology in which these crackers are not really supreme because they can't take what you have in here. You know what I'm saying? If you're strong in here, you know what I'm saying? They can't control you. You know what I'm saying? Only thing they could do is take you out. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing they could really do to you. Is it? Oh yeah. Thanks, King Wade. Yeah. See, that's why. Yeah, that's why I don't call them white. There's nothing pure about them. Exactly. Even the black Muslims know this. In the Nation of Islam, they even know this as fact. They even know this as fact. You know what I'm saying? That's how they were able to get a lot of brothers to join their religion. You know what I mean? Because of the fact, because they know what these caucasoids and crackazoids and GMO people have been doing to us throughout the years. This ain't no thing that they just came up with yesterday. This was a process. This is a process on how these caucasoids have broken us down. This took them over years for these caucasoids to break us down to the point where they think they have gotten us. But the thing is, thanks to this social media, you know what I mean? Exactly, KD. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So be that as it may, we got the power now. We know what integration has done to us. And we're now saying that integration is the worst idea that we ever co-opt to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? Worst idea that we have been, because why would you want to give up your business to be with a cracker just because they destroyed your community? Hell nah. What's going on, Rockwaller? Peace to you, King Rockwaller. Good seeing you in here. What's going on, Cap? Yeah, I made sure I hit you up as a moderator too, man. Yeah, so we could build up a fortress against these trolls who may come in here. Exactly, KD. Exactly. That's why we gotta be black first. That's why I played Professor Black Truth audio. You know what I'm saying? To let each other know, man, that we got something here that these crackers cannot touch. You know what I'm saying? We got something that's gonna really put the fear in them. They already fierce as it is, which is why they go on their rounds preventing Venezuelans from coming here, preventing Iranians, Syrian people, anybody who's within the Middle East and North Africa, they're preventing them from coming here. Not to mention all of these Mexican immigrants. So they really don't want black and brown people to come in here, period. And the thing is, they don't want us black and brown people who are here to leave. You know what I mean? Which is why they don't want to pay us in order for us to be independent of them. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. I see somebody else just walked in here. Peace of love to you. Good to see you walking up in here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing we gotta Recognize, family. But the thing is, these crackers, they ain't got a hold on all of us. They ain't got a hold on all of us. If we could build up as a group of 10 to 15 people, the strike of a Black First Brigade, you know what I'm saying? Just us alone can be a threat to this Caucasoid establishment. Just us alone is a threat to the YouTube establishment. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, so thanks for the likes. Appreciate it. Definitely hit that like button. Yeah, and definitely spread this around too. You know, so yeah. So we got a thing going on. You know what I'm saying? It's a great time to be melanated because these Caucasoids are dinosaurs. Soon they won't be here anymore. You know what I'm saying? But they said in the there was an article that says by 2045 they're gonna be, well, actually that article was kind of like a lie, but they said they're gonna be just barely less than half of the population. But the way I see it now, the whites who are here now, I personally believe they make up anywhere between 20 to 30% of the population. You know what I'm saying? The reason why they're boosting up the numbers because they're claiming North Africans, Middle Easterners, you know what I'm saying, and other people from European nations, which is not that many as far as the other European nations is concerned, because they're not coming here to live. Nah, they staying where they at. Yeah, exactly, August Dreams. Good riddance to them. So I personally believe by 2045, most of these Caucasoids are going to be extinct anyway. It's going to be ours, in which all this gentrification and all this other stuff that they're doing and prevent immigrants from coming here, I wouldn't even worry about that. You know what I'm saying? They could do what they want because the Most High is already working to get rid of their sorry asses anyway. I know, right, Cap? I probably am being too generous. Yeah, you're right. You may very well be right about that. Because Lisa Cabrera actually put up some videos talking about the huge Black population in Texas and like several cities in Mississippi is made up of mostly us. Anywhere between 70 to 90% of the population in several cities in Mississippi are Black. You know what I'm saying? Or native Black, you know? So yeah. Yeah, exactly, August Dreams. Yup, exactly. So there's no way they could be over 60% of the population. There's no definitive way. Oh, no. Oh, shoot, they claim Arabs as white, too. I almost forgot about them. Shoot, after a while, they're going to be extinct, too, after all the Caucasoids are gone. Yeah, exactly, Cap. You're probably in Texas. There's a lot of Black people in Texas, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. And like, I know places like San Antonio and places further south of Texas, there's a lot of Mexicans. You know what I mean? And of course, you know, that's obvious because Mexico is right across from, right just below Texas. Actually, really, pretty much all of Texas used to be Mexico at one time, up until the mid 1800s. You know what I'm saying? So Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of California, and maybe Nevada used to be all Mexico at one time. Yeah, I hear that, KD. Keep them guns loaded. Yes, sir. You know, so yeah. So with that being said, this is why, yeah, this is why we have every reason to rejoice. That's why I like watching Lisa Cabrera's videos. You know what I'm saying? Letting us know that, shoot, ain't a whole lot of these cockazoids like they saying they are. You know what I mean? Exactly, Augustine. Black guns matter. Hashtag that. Yes. Yes. So, yo, I mean, they've been shutting other YouTubers down, such as Yurima Karama. You know what I'm saying? He just got his thing back up. You know, he used that hashtag Black Guns Matter. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Man, these cockazoids, man, they can miss me with all of that shoot. They can miss me with all this immigration and preventing people from coming here and this and that. Nah. Exactly. And anybody who cakes on them, even the coons and the bootlickers, they're about to be assassinated too. After we get done with all these cockazoids. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, I'm a play something here. Y'all probably might find this interesting too. This video, and someone actually sent to me. I'm gonna start from the very beginning.
From their families, they weren't that.
Hold up.
But anybody with even a drop.
Oh, here it is.
Hi, this is Brass Check, and we're talking about the troubles at the border. And I want to give a little history.
Hope y'all can hear that good.
On what's going on. To do that, we have to go back to the origins of the United States, and for better, well, for worse, the fundamental origin of the United States was one, land theft by murder from Native American people, and number two, bringing in enslaved African people to do the backbreaking work of building the country. Now, of course, a lot of other people were involved in building the country too, but the slave population obviously was a huge financial boost. When you don't have to pay people, millions of people to do work, it allows you to accrue a lot of capital. Remove those two things from the equation, and you don't have the level of prosperity that we've had in the last 200 years. So that's just fact. That's just the foundation of things. All this nonsense about people coming for religious freedom and all that is just that. It's just nonsense. There might have been a few.
Barely. Okay.
People came here involuntarily, or because they were escaping incredibly desperate circumstances. That would include most Europeans.
Hold on.
Who ended up here. They didn't come here for fun. Nobody leaves their home country for fun and adventure.
Okay, KD. Yeah.
Unless they're backpackers and they plan to go home to uproot yourself and go from one place to another language.
Hold on. It probably might be better if I play it from my phone.
Really grim back home. But let's look at a little bit of slavery. Slavery obviously was a big business. Many people got rich off it. Those who didn't get rich off it made a living from it. And we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Somebody had to kidnap the slaves. Somebody had to make chains to secure them. Some Americans during World War II, they didn't turn illegal immigrants or even first generation immigrants. Anybody
is that better?
With even a drop of Japanese blood, including infants. Now they didn't separate infants from their families. They weren't that vicious. But anybody with even a drop of Japanese blood was interned. Turns out it was illegal.
Gotcha.
But it was, quote, justified, supposedly at the time. And it was a famous Supreme Court judge, and you'll have to look it up, who was not a Supreme Court judge at the time, but became one, who put his stamp of approval on the order. And the order was put through, was a California judge, by the way. This happened largely in California, where the vast majority of Japanese citizens, and these were American citizens, and they were more American than apple pie. I have photographs in my archive of Japanese people, dressed up in baseball, uniforms, playing baseball, playing in brass bands, owning and operating diners. I mean, these people were thoroughly Americanized. There was nothing, not that would justify it, but there was nothing, foreign about them in any way. So why was it done? For safety, for security? No. Japanese people owned a lot of valuable real estate, both urban in San Francisco and throughout the state agriculturally. And one of the deals was you had to sell all your stuff before you were returned. What price do you think those people got on their farmlands and on their urban properties, their homes, their businesses, their office buildings? They were robbed. So the Japanese internment, like slavery, was purely money motivated by sick, greedy people in power who happened to have control of the PR machine, the public relations machine. And they have somehow managed to sell Americans on the idea that it was okay for your fellow citizens to be put in shackles, put on buses and trains, and sent to desert internment camps, concentration camps. So let's look at another phenomenon in America, which is the fact that we have more, by percentage of population, we have more people in prison and in jail than any other country on earth. More than communist China, more than oligarchic Russia, more than any backwater in Africa or Latin America run by some crazy dictator. We have a higher percentage of people in prison than any other country in the world. If you're in prison on this planet, there's a 1 in 4 chance that you're in a U.S. prison. Right? I don't know what we make up anymore. It's a percentage of the population. Sure isn't a quarter. We've got about you can just do the math. We have about 300 million more, actually. Let's call it 3 billion people on the planet. All right? We'll just do the math. That's 1%. So 1% of the population, a country with 1% of the population, has 25% of the entire prison population. What's that all about? That's about money. One of the places that has a super high prison rate is California. And one of the reasons California has a super high prison rate is there's a prison guard union. And you can look this up and get into all the details. That prison guard union was taken over a couple of decades ago by a very ambitious guy. And he had a very simple plan to create job security and job growth for his members. He was going to criminalize every conceivable act you could imagine in the state of California, so that if you were poor and black or Latino and were arrested for something trivial, you were going to go to jail and or prison. It got so bad that at one point, even the San Francisco Chronicle, and I believe it was the LAPD. I mean, these are two of the most regressive organizations in the world. It got so bad that at one point even they said, "Hey, you're going too far here." But they, with their money, bribed California politicians, and California politicians cooperated and criminalized every conceivable act and made huge penalties for every conceivable offense you could on prisons than it spends on its college system for young people. Money. That's what's driving it. Money. The other place that has that's worth mentioning is Louisiana. Louisiana, the U.S. is the worst for incarceration. Louisiana is the worst of the worst. And within Louisiana, the worst of the worst is New Orleans. Is it any coincidence that the major slave market in the United States of America is now the place where black people are most likely to be incarcerated? So someone walking down the street, stopped by cops, found to have a joint in their pocket, literally, will go to jail and will not be bailed out. That's it. They're in jail until their hearing, which could be many, many months. So that's part of the reason there are so many people in jail. There, people are incarcerated for ridiculous minor offenses, and many of them are too poor to bail out. A sensational case, but worth mentioning here, and we ran it on brass check when it happened. There were two judges in eastern Pennsylvania who had made a deal with a private prison, the owners of a private prison. They made a deal for which they were compensated, and their job was to put as many kids in prison as possible, into that prison as possible, and they did. So if you showed up with literally a skateboarding offense, if you had done graffiti, there was one child who showed up who had posted something unflattering about her teacher. Those were all jailable offenses. And unfortunately for these children, a lot of these kids showed up without attorneys, or with incompetent attorneys, which is sort of goes without saying, and ended up in jail. Now, thank God, after many years of this, somebody caught on, and these two judges are now they're in jail for what they did. I hope they're having a good time. I hope they're really getting the treatment. But what was that all about? Well, that was obviously had nothing to do with law and order, had nothing to do with security. It had to do with money. Now, this is what's missing from the mainstream news reporting on this, whether it's Fox or MSNBC or CNN or anybody. They're not talking about the fact that this is a massive money play. And in that way, it's exactly like these two corrupt judges that sent children to jail for nothing. It's exactly like the fact that the U.S. has more people incarcerated than anyone else in the world, any other country in the world, for money. It's exactly like basically the theft of the land and businesses and real estate of Japanese Americans during World War II. And it's exactly like the slave trade. The form is different, obviously. All those things are different, but the motivation's the same. You use law and order and or security to justify the abuse and theft of other people's property. Now, in the case of slavery or the incarceration of the Japanese, the theft, you're stealing people's lives. And you're taking those lives and turning them into money. And I'm sure, and we're going to get to this in a second, I'm sure those internment camps
exactly
were
August
by
Dreams
contractors. And I'm sure there are people in the Pacific Northwest whose families can date their fortune to the building of those camps. The building, and they're operated by the military. But when they say the military budget, you always got to realize that 90% of that budget is private contractors, arms manufacturers, or people providing services. I mean, you may not know, but let me tell you that in Iraq, soldiers did not do their own laundry. They were prohibited. They were forbidden from doing their own laundry. They had to turn it over, and I'm drawing a blank, but it's the company that was owned by President Cheney, and he had shares. He was a major shareholder before the war. And that company became the official laundry for the United States. And laundry was done at $100 per load. So without, I mean, even that alone, that one quote little business alone, multiply it by the number of troops and support personnel, multiply that by the number of times your laundry has to be done in a year, and multiply that by 100, and that was just the laundry, and all that was privately made money. I digress, but you're getting the idea. If you hear about a military budget, what you're hearing about is politically connected people getting massive paydays. I remember I was teaching briefly at a college in Virginia long ago, and there was this one snot-nosed kid, this is back in the early 80s, who was bragging that his father was taking him and his friends to the Bahamas or someplace in the Caribbean for the weekend on their private plane. And this I think, people that are old enough to remember, that was a rare thing back in the 80s. It seems to be more common now, but that kind of travel was very, very, very rare. And his dad was a defense contractor. Like, okay, I get it. Let's look at some reality about the immigrant crisis. Number one, the peak of illegal immigration was in 2006. It was around 1 million people. The current number is somewhere around 300 million. So in relative sense, there is no crisis. There's a great reduction in the number of people crossing the border illegally. Why is that? Well, one of the big percentage of people that were coming to the United States were coming from Mexico. And the U.S. has become such an unattractive place economically for everyone, whether you're a citizen or a non-citizen, that Mexicans said, we might as well stay home. The place is a train wreck. So that's why the border crossings by Mexicans are down dramatically. People that are coming from Central America, you just have to look at the history. We have participated in the destruction of civil society in Guatemala, in El Salvador, actively right now in Honduras, and we're trying to topple the government in Nicaragua again. That's an ongoing thing. We put absolute monstrous thugs into power. They destroy the society. They create chaos. They unleash, violent, horrific forces. And those countries are hellholes. I've been to them. People are very nice. The level of danger is very high. In Guatemala, if you were a business owner and you have any kind of a profile at all, you have to have bodyguards 24/7. When you go out to lunch in Guatemala City, you'll see SUVs parked out front, and you'll see guys standing out in front of the restaurant, and they're all strapped. A Coca-Cola truck trying to make deliveries in Guatemala has to have, and I'm sure this is the same in El Salvador and Honduras, because those countries are even worse off, but I really only know Guatemala deeply. I've been to the other countries, but I've spent months in Guatemala. Someone has to literally ride shotgun. Somebody has to sit in the front seat of the truck with a shotgun and come out and supervise all the deliveries of Coke and all the cash pickups. That's how violent these countries have become. Not because the people are violent, but because the civil society has been destroyed. In the 80s and 90s, starting with Ronald Reagan, the military leaders who were just frontmen for the rich people of the country went on a program of genocide in Guatemala. The estimate is 200,000 plus people, largely indigenous people, were murdered in Guatemala by the military. You can look that up. They routinely track people down now at this point and send them to jail for their involvement in it. But, in a country that only has less than 20 million people, 1% or more than 1% of the country was murdered, not put in jail like we do. We've got 1% of our population behind bars. They murdered armed them. We trained them. We gave our tacit approval to that. And you have similar things going on in El Salvador and in Honduras. Now, Nicaragua was a different story. They threw off Somoza. They ran their own system. We didn't like it, so we funded terrorists in the countryside. Because our terrorists weren't strong enough to fight in the city, so we had them do their operations in the countryside. And what were their operations? Destroying clinics, medical clinics, destroying bridges, destroying food processing facilities, and murdering peasants. Terror. It was a war of terror, and the idea was to turn the Nicaraguan people against their own government. And I'm not a huge fan of socialism, but sometimes when a country's back is to the wall, they have to take drastic means. And when countries have been so massively corrupt for so long, as Nicaragua was, you really have to reset things. And the Nicaraguans were doing their best to reset things. And it involved building up the countryside, it involved building schools, it involved building medical clinics, it involved building food processing, which is so important to people that are rural farmers. And they used their resources to do that. And what did? We destroyed that, and we terrorized the people who were trying to do those programs. So that's what our government did. So when we look at most of the people coming to the border these days, especially those applying for refugee status, are from those countries. You know, when you look at the oceans of people trying to cross into Europe from Syria, from Tunisia, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, well, why are they leaving their countries? Because their countries have been destroyed. Who did that? Yeah, those countries weren't ideal. They weren't perfect. They were highly messy before we got involved. But people stayed home. People had lives. People could survive. So we created this problem, and now we're brutalizing the people that had the problem that we created. That's what's going on. By the way, this is obscured, but it's slowly coming out. The process of coming to the United States and applying for refugee status is not a crime. It's a procedure. It's a civil procedure. You come, you apply, and you may be approved, in which case you can stay. You may be disapproved, in which case you're deported. It's not criminal to come here and apply. Many of the families that have been separated, with the children taken away from their mothers, infants, nursing infants, toddlers, it boggles my mind that anybody can look at that and not see evil. And apparently 50% of all self-identifying GOP members believe that this is a correct policy. We got a lot of sick people in this. That's stuff we got to face. We have a lot of sick individuals in this country. And it's interesting to me. They always have to go to a diner somewhere in the middle of nowhere where they talk to some, poorly educated, half senile idiot about his or her opinion about how life should be in America. And then that somehow balanced against the issue of, do you separate infants from their parents? Remember, even if they have crossed the border illegally, they've committed a misdemeanor. This is not a federal offense. This is not a criminal offense. I mean, it's a criminal offense, but it's a misdemeanor. And let's look at some other basic numbers. This is being sold. This whole policy is being sold with lies. So when they say only 3% of the people that are released to come back for a hearing show up, that's a lie. Over 75% come back. Is that a perfect number? No, but it's not 3%. And a lot of the people that don't come back, they move, they don't get noticed properly, they live in chaotic conditions, they plan to go home eventually anyway. They're afraid to come back. They figure, hey, we're looking at the news. We shouldn't have anything to do with these people. I'll tell you a personal experience that I had. I have a good friend from Russia, and he came here. He had refugee status because he left the Soviet Union. He had all his paperwork. He had permission to work. He worked as a house cleaner, his own business. Worked hard. He and his wife. He was able to bring his wife over. Took 2 years, but he was able to do it. He went in to check in at the immigration, and they messed up his paperwork. There was a mistake that they made. So what did they do? They handcuffed him to a radiator for 8 hours, and then they put him on a bus. This was San Francisco. Then they put him on a bus to Los Angeles, and then he was put in a prison. And then he was shipped from Los Angeles to Phoenix, or Tucson. And he was in prison for 6 months. He had followed every law, every rule. He'd done everything correctly. And they had made a paperwork mistake, or someone had made a paperwork mistake. And this is pre-9/11, by the way. Okay, there was no Russian crime wave even at that time yet. This was just a garden variety legal immigrant jailed for 6 months because a bureaucrat made a paperwork mistake, and nobody anywhere in that chain of events had the intelligence or the integrity or the decency to listen to him and sort it out. So he lost 6 months of his life in prison. That's the nature of these people. That's how immigrants or people that are not American citizens who are here working or living are treated routinely. This has been going on since the beginning of time. There's no difference. If you have ancestors that came here, I guarantee they were abused as well. But anyway, 75% or more of the people who are supposed to come to hearings come to their hearings. That's a pretty high percentage. If you compare it to Americans, it wouldn't be much worse. So to say that 3% only shows up is a blatant lie. We already know that it's a blatant lie that there's a crisis on the border. Okay, I don't know what these senile, poorly educated idiots down in Arizona are talking about. The numbers are down from 1 million to 300,000. The peak was over 10 years ago. The situation is getting better all the time.
Hey, what's up, pretty boy Randy?
Unfortunately, we destroyed Central America, and we're now getting the blowback from that. Had we not done that, the numbers would be trivial. So what other numbers are important for us to know? Money is the number that we need to know. If somebody is...
You know what, Cap? I might play that video too, man. Yeah, I am kind of curious about that covert war against Louis Armstrong.
Where you can release them on their own recognizance. That happens every day in America. People commit crimes and they're allowed to bail out, or they're just allowed to go and come back for their hearing. It's normal. There's nothing unusual about it. If you want to keep track of these folks, make sure they show up, you can put an ankle bracelet. Ankle bracelet on. The cost to do that, which is highly inflated, but still, it's what it costs.
Okay, August Dreams. Yep, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
About $500 a month, and you can break that down how much that is per day. It's not much. Put that on, and you can find, you tell them you're under house arrest, you can't leave town, you can't leave this neighborhood, and show up at your hearing. And you will get a high level of compliance. It'll be in the upper 90 percentile.
Hey, Sean Lowe, good to see you back.
Now here's the point of this whole rant by me. What do you think it costs to house a child?
Yeah, hey, how you doing, K-Rab?
Facilities. Okay.
Good seeing you up in here.
You may already know, but let's compare. So we have $6,000 divided by 365 equals Oh,
yeah, I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play that one too.
16 times
Yeah, that is very interesting though, by Louis Armstrong.
So the ankle monitor costs $16 a day. Families stay together. Children aren't traumatized. You know, the head of the U.S. American Pediatrics Association, all the doctors that take care of children, came out. He visited one of these places, and he flatly said, "This is child abuse." Now, usually when an authority says something, the news media falls all over itself, making sure that everybody hears it, especially if, you know, that person's trying to sell something. But this little blip of news came and went, gone. But the person, arguably with the most authority in this country on the well-being, the medical well-being of children, states unequivocally that this is child abuse. This is done in no other country. The Chinese don't do it. The Europeans don't do it. The Russians don't do it. Nobody does this except slave traders. And I'm going to read a quote in a second from somebody who traveled in the land of slave traders in Africa, and what he had to say about what he saw. And you see if it's any different than what's going on in the United States right now. So we now have that number, I think it was $16 a day for an ankle monitor. It costs $670 a day.
Wow.
To intern a kidnapped child kidnapped from its family in a U.S. internment camp. $670 a day.
No problem, all his dreams.
A day. And if you have your calculator out, that's $244,550 per year. So every time you see one of those children, and they want to add to that, they want to put more in, it's $244,550 per day. This is a money thing. Just like slavery, just like the internment of the Japanese, just like the mass incarceration of American citizens, this is a money thing. People are getting rich off of this.
Nothing but cargo.
When you hear that the military is going to build, is going to pitch in and build camps, you need to hear it this way. Politically connected military contractors who have already been on this for years are ready to spring into action and cash in. Because they're the ones that are going to be building these things. They're probably going to be doing 90% of the operation. So it's not the military doing this; it's the politically connected military contractors that are going to be doing this. So we had private prison companies; their stock prices are through the roof. Obviously, the business is so big that it's outstripping even their greed, and the defense contractors, the greediest of all, the most corrupt of all, they're getting into the business. And guess who is a major lobbyist for private prisons and people that build private prisons? Corey Lewandowski. Who's Corey Lewandowski? Well, he is a bagman for Donald Trump. He's been Donald Trump's close advisor from the beginning. He was invited by the sick U.S. news media to represent Trump on Fox and CNN.
Ain't that something?
And now he's the chief cheerleader for this incarceration scheme. Corey Lewandowski. And he receives money as a lobbyist every day from people that operate private prisons who are making and stand to make vast fortunes from this new mass internment scheme. So this is slavery days all over again. You're making money by stealing people's lives. That's what's happening. Nothing else. And what boggles my mind is nobody's talking about the dollars and sense here. CNN's not talking about it. Well, obviously Fox, they're the biggest cheerleaders for this imaginable. But even maybe I'm missing it, but I'm not seeing a lot of alternative media just pointing out that this is a money thing. The people, all this stuff about security and safety and law and order is a smokescreen. The discussions of justice and human rights are not a smokescreen, but as important as those issues are, we have to face that this is a money grab. This is a blatant money grab by criminals who happen to be in the government. I want to read a quote for you. These unfortunate and distracted lands where the traveler every day has to observe domestic happiness trodden underfoot, children torn from the breasts of their mothers, and wives from the embraces of their husbands.
Wow.
What is he describing? He's describing USA 21st century. But actually, this fellow Heinrich Barth was in Africa in the 1850s, traveling through the rural areas of Africa that were ravaged by the still thriving slave trade. Let me read it again. These unfortunate and distracted lands where the traveler every day has to observe domestic happiness trodden underfoot, children torn from the breasts of their mothers, and wives from the embraces of their husbands. He was describing a completely vicious and chaotic situation in rural Africa during the slave trade times. And you could take those same words that he used in 1850 and apply them to what you see on the television every day in 21st century America. So we're not under threat. Yeah, we need to be more intelligent about how we handle the borders. Some of the laws can definitely use a second look and possibly reform. That's true. Every country has this problem, not just the United States. Canada has people sneaking in. England has people sneaking in. All countries have this problem. They don't solve it by taking children from their families and incarcerating children in horrific situations. And it's being done for money. And this is no other way to look at it. Trump personally is only 2 steps removed from the money. You've got the private prison owners, you've got Corey Lewandowski, and you have Trump. Now, Obama and before him Bush and certainly Clinton before him all created the foundation for what we're seeing today. So the fact that Trump is a loathsome human being, I think goes without saying. Anybody that doesn't get that is addled. But he is only using the weapon that he was handed by Barack Obama and by George Bush Jr. and by Bill and Hillary Clinton. So let's put blame where it's due. It needs to be spread out evenly among all the government criminals. But this is a money thing. It's a money thing. It's a money thing. It's a money thing. It's a money thing. It has nothing to do with security. It has nothing to do with law and order. They could achieve the same end by putting ankle monitors on these folks for, I think we said $16 a day. Instead, what are they doing? They're taking children from their parents and putting them in federal incarceration facilities for $670 a day. Private companies are getting that money. Those companies are giving money to lobbyists, and those lobbyists are giving money to politicians, and that's why this is happening. There's no other reason, and it's bizarre and disgraceful to me that this is not the news, and that everything else under the sun is being discussed, but the pure, simple fact that this is a money grab is being ignored. So that's that. I hope you found this illuminating. Do your own research, of course, always. You don't have to believe anything I say. Use your own common sense. And try to help if you've got family members or neighbors, and if you've got the stomach for it, try to educate them. It is pathetic to see American citizens cheering this thing or saying, oh, it's an unfortunate necessity. It's not a necessity by any length. The problem could be solved literally tomorrow, and it won't be, because it provides all kinds of political fodder and income to lots and lots of people. That's Brass Check.
¿Ya comieron ya?
Yeah, family, that was that video. That's he said a lot on that video. Wow. Hold on, I'm gonna play this other one too, because I know some of y'all were asking about it in the chat. Yeah, I gotta play this one too. This covert war against Louis Armstrong's reputation.
There's a war against Americans, and that war is being fought by elements of the so-called U.S. government. Not all of the government, because we certainly need government. We need roads. We need fire suppression. We need people to make sure that food is not adulterated and poisoned. There's all kinds of things we need from the government. So I don't think any thinking person is purely anti-government, but we are against anti-abusive government, of which there is quite a bit. And there's a war against average Americans, and that's just a fact. I think it's hard to deny when you look at how things are going in this country and have been for many, many years. And we're going to talk a little bit about war. There's a funny scene in the movie Forrest Gump where Forrest is in Vietnam and he's just arrived with his unit, and he says his lieutenant, and he salutes him, and his lieutenant says, "Put your hand down, don't salute me." Why? Because he was afraid of getting hit by a sniper. One of the principles of war, and it's funny, it's obscured greatly, and I'll tell you why it's obscured greatly in the popular mind, is to kill the leader. Resources are not infinite, and if there are 100 people and you've only got one bullet, the thing to do is find the leader and shoot him. And I think the reason that this simple principle is not taught or promulgated in history lessons is that we would then look at the assassination of Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Thomas Merton and Fred Hampton, and on and on and on it goes. People who were positive leaders in this country have a tendency to end up with bullets in the back of their head. That's just American history. There's no denying it. And somehow the crooks managed to live a long life and die in their beds. George Bush Sr., for example. But there's another kind of assassination that goes on, and that's the assassination of people's reputation. So if somebody is a leader, short of killing him, you can besmirch his character and his reputation unfairly, unjustly, and without any facts. And what I'm going to talk about on this call, this Brass Check podcast, is the systematic besmirching of a great American who happened to have been born today. His name was Louis Armstrong. And we'll talk about him and how important he was and is to the American story, the American character. And we're going to talk about odd, strange, unexplained efforts to bring him down several notches. And if you think in terms of context, and if you think in terms of the context of shooting a leader or bringing the leader down, suddenly what's been done with Louis Armstrong's biography in the last several years after he died and was in no position to defend himself will make a lot of sense. So here's the show. It's the 4th of July, and you're listening to the very occasional Brass Check podcast. And today on the 4th of July, we're going to talk about one of the most important Americans in our entire history, one of the most esteemed, one of the most dignified, one of the most contributing to America and what America means, and that would be Louis Armstrong. And Louis Armstrong was many things. First and foremost, he was one of the key central innovators in the art called jazz, which is literally as American as apple pie, and it's one of the most positive things the country's ever produced. It's beloved around the world, whether you're in Japan or in Turkey or in Nigeria or in Chile or in the Netherlands. Wherever you are in the world, there are people that love and revere and practice and study jazz and create a lot of fun and uplifting times for all the people around them. And Louis Armstrong was one of the key stylists. You know, if you had to boil it down to 3 guys, he would be one of those, and he would be the first. generated by people like Louis Armstrong, who traveled the world and showed the positive side of America, the non-elite side. He was also a courageous man. In the late 1950s, he personally and publicly and on film stood up to Dwight D. Eisenhower and basically called him out on the mistreatment of black children in Alabama. Now, if you wind the clock back and imagine anybody of any race doing that in that particular era, you were really putting your head on the chopping block. For an Afro-American to do that, magnify that 1,000 times. For a guy who made his living based on public opinion, magnified 1,000,000 times. But when he was asked later, did you really mean what you said? He said, I did. I meant every word of it. So not only was he a great artist, a great example of the highest values of American society and culture, he was also a man of great courage. So why are we talking about him today? Well, something odd happened after Louis Armstrong passed away. Stories started to emerge, one after another, that sort of tarnish his reputation. And it's interesting to note that these stories came out after he died, not while he was alive to protect himself. And that the stories have no basis in reality, or in fact, or in evidentiary fact. And yet these have become dominant stories in the biography of Louis Armstrong. Every one of them is negative. And it's just very, very odd to me. And I don't know who's behind it or why whoever is involved in engineering this did it, but I can make a guess. And to give you a clue, it's pretty well known, I assume, that people at the very top, the elites of the world, the powers that be, are racist to the core. I mean, it's in their DNA, it's in their blood. Those are the true racists of America. And if you look back at some of these families, they made their money in the 19th century. They made their capital in the 19th century. And they made their money in two ways: running opium to China and moving slaves to the Western Hemisphere. So all these Cabots and Lodge and all these distinguished people that go way back, that's how they built their capital. They then took that money and invested it in industrial things and became even wealthier. But the core of their capital came from criminal operations that victimized non-white people. And I assume these people adopted an attitude towards people other than themselves that was pretty brutal. And let's give just a little crystallization essence of this attitude. There's an organization at Yale University called Skull and Bones, which is not part of Yale, as Yale always goes out of its way to tell you. It's actually a private organization that somehow has a building on the campus. But it's a private organization, privately endowed, privately managed, privately funded, has its own rules. And one of the things the members of this undergraduate club did was raid the burial ground of Geronimo, the great Apache leader. And they took his skull and his femur bones and some other things belonging to him and brought them back to, quote, the temple, their little clubhouse in New Haven, where they, to this day, continue to play with them. That may seem like not a big deal, but let's change the context a little bit. Imagine someone out of the ghetto came into your neighborhood and went to the cemetery. And imagine there's somebody in your local cemetery who is really esteemed, a good guy, a courageous guy, a leader, an exemplary human being. And those guys dug up the grave, took the bones back to their little clubhouse, and started playing around with those bones. It's different, isn't it? But that's exactly, there is no difference. I mean, there is exactly the same dynamic that's going on. Now, to take this a little further, this isn't a clubhouse for kids. This isn't like a frat house. Okay, this is a very well-endowed, well-organized organization. And the boys that become members know damn well that they're on a short leash, and they better, toe the line to what the older members, the graduated members, have to say. They can't just run wild and do whatever they want. Believe me, they know that. That's part of the deal. So the fact that this was allowed to happen in the first place, and that it's allowed to persist for all these years later is indicative of the attitudes of the people that come out of organizations like Skull and Bones towards anyone who's not, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Their kind of people. So this kind of racism, it's infused in the Pentagon, it's infused in all the intelligence agencies, because all those organizations, they're just lapdogs for the people with power. And the people with power want to make sure the people that bust heads for them have the same essential attitudes that they have. So there is a tremendous amount of institutional ingrained racism amongst the powers that be that extends to all the intelligence agencies and all the people that are involved in trying to control the American population. So let's have that as a background. So now let's go back and look at Louis Armstrong. One of the other things that made Louis Armstrong so extraordinary is he grew up under the most difficult, impoverished urban poverty situation imaginable. If you go back and read what cities were like in the United States at the turn of the century, and I had older relatives that could tell me firsthand, just can't imagine how bad they were. And to be dirt poor in a scenario like that, and to be the wrong color in a blatantly racist city, tough times, really, really tough times. He had no advantages of any kind other than the culture of his neighborhood and his family, and education, minimal, and anything that we would, consider contributing to the development of a young person, minimal. And yet out of that, he became this, not just a great artist, but a phenomenal artist for the ages. So he is a sort of a shining beacon of human potential, and he's an Afro-American. So it's so interesting to me that after he died, stories started circulating about him that became literal part of his biography. And none of these facts, these so-called facts, were ever brought out or discovered while he was still alive. If he was alive, he would have had a chance to defend himself. Not being alive, what can he do? Not much. So, first myth. This seems like an innocuous one, but he always said that he was born on July 4th, 1900. Now, obviously nobody remembers being born, and I certainly don't, and I certainly didn't mark it on my calendar when I wasn't in a state to do that. Nobody is. So you kind of have to depend on the people around you to give you the information on when you were born, right? We all have to do that. That's not unique to Louis Armstrong. That's not unique to Afro-Americans. Everybody's got to count on the adults that were around when he was born to tell him when he was born. Now, his mom always said he was a firecracker baby. Well, when do people light off firecrackers? And I guarantee you, 1900 New Orleans, people weren't willy-nilly spending money on firecrackers because nobody had any money. So if they were lighting them off, it was probably right on the 4th of July. So his mom said he was a firecracker baby. When he signed up for the draft, he registered for the draft. When he was 18, they asked him what his birthday was. And on this formal government document, he put July 4th, 1900. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that Louis Armstrong, this great American, great exemplar of positivity, was born on July 4th, 1900. It's just amazing. So after he died, some scholar came along and said, oh, no, that's bullshit. He wasn't born then. He was really born on August 4th. I forget the year, 1901. And that became doctrine. Doctrine was, that was just some showbiz nonsense, and Louis didn't know what he was talking about, and, he really wasn't born on the 4th of July. He wasn't born on America's most important holiday. He was just born on some other day in the summer. And it's gotten such that there's even a major conference on Louis Armstrong held in New Orleans that's held in August instead of the correct date, which is July 4th. So what is the evidence that he was born on any date other than July 4th? What's the evidence, right? Evidence. How about some evidence? Well, the evidence is thinner than thin. It's literally a undistinguished, undifferentiated scrap of paper that has his name, and then in French Creole, Black Infant, and then the date August 4th, 1901. And the idea is, he was baptized, and this is his baptismal record, and obviously he couldn't have been born in the date he said, because this scrap of paper out of the blue is gospel. Well, here's some reality. The church where this document was supposedly found is in a very solidly middle-class white neighborhood that's been that way since the beginning of time. Armstrong was born way on the wrong side of the tracks on a whole other part of town in a largely Afro-American and immigrant neighborhood. Okay, so it would be like Mike Tyson, who was born in a rough part of Brooklyn, suddenly somehow getting baptized in St. Patrick's Cathedral in Midtown.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't happen. That's item number one. Number two, if Louis Armstrong were baptized as a Catholic, the Catholic Church, especially in New Orleans, is very good at keeping formal, and I'm going to put that in, underline it, bold letters, formal records of who was baptized. Not a scrap of paper, an actual baptismal certificate, and also a backup in a ledger. So there would have been two things. There would have been a ledger. There should be a ledger from that church that shows when he was baptized, if he was baptized there. And there should be a formal baptismal certificate with all the gilt lettering and the seal and the signature of the pastor and the whole shebang. There is no such thing. No one has ever seen it. And yet this claim that, oh, the Armstrongs are full of it, he wasn't born on July 4th, he was really born on August 4th, circulates around. Now, that may seem like a small thing, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. But it is a diminution of his story. And it also, puts a bit of a shadow on his integrity or his reliability. Second story that also started circulating after he died is that his mother was a prostitute. And this you'll find in every single, Wikipedia, wherever you go, where anybody writes about Louis Armstrong. There's a documentary, very expensively made documentary about him. They mention that too. Everybody just throws this around. There is no documentary evidence of any kind anywhere that backs up and verifies this pretty slanderous claim. Now, how would you feel if somebody decided to write a news story tomorrow that your mother was a prostitute, had been a prostitute? I mean, I don't think I'd like it. I don't have anything against people that make their living that way, but I mean, so that's something that you want to be associated with, especially if it's not true. So where does this evidence come from? Well, she was listed as a tenant in a boarding house in a rough part of town. Well, people didn't have houses. Black people especially didn't have houses in New Orleans. They didn't have apartments. That was not a common arrangement for anybody except in the very biggest cities. And for the average person, yeah, you probably lived in a boarding house, a tiny little room, a communal kitchen, and you probably lived with all kinds of different people. There were formal, there was no wild and woolly prostitution scene in New Orleans. It was formal, and it was organized, and it was legal. And the brothels were registered. The workers were registered. It wasn't like this hidden thing going on. It was the first thing you did apparently in the old days when you arrived in New Orleans was go and buy the guidebook. And it would tell you about the sporting houses and who ran them and who was hot and who was not, and what you could expect to pay, what the interiors were like, what the experience was like inside, all those things. So this is not some chaotic underground industry. It was above board, and there wasn't much to be left to the imagination. So to extrapolate that an impoverished young woman lived in a boarding house, to take that piece of information, which means nothing because that's how people lived, unless you had a family. If you're on your own, you went to the cheapest housing available. In those days, it was a boarding house. So that's the evidence that these scholars, these post-Armstrong death scholars, use to claim over and over and over again in every conceivable outlet, son of a prostitute. Really? I mean, what shoddy scholarship? But notice it's not shoddy scholarship that puts him in a good light. They're him and his family in a good light. It puts them in a negative light. Again, and he was not around to defend himself. Or nobody's really around to ask because, if Louis Armstrong was born in 1900, his mom was born in 1880. There aren't many people from 1880 looking around that can tell you what was what back then. I guess there are none. Final story that emerged after Louis Armstrong's death is that he abandoned New Orleans, abandoned his people, his community in New Orleans, and except for a few high-profile occasions, never came back. Now, it's not like the world's worst thing in the world, but it's kind of put him in a negative light. You know, what kind of a leader is he really? You know, what kind of an icon is he if he doesn't even support his own people? Well, there is a ledger. There used to be two music unions in New Orleans. One of them was called the Negro Musicians Union. Now they've since combined, and now it's a single music union. But you know, if you were black, you were in the Negro Union. If you were white, you were in the white union. That ledger exists. And what that is if you're a member of the union, which Louis Armstrong was his whole life. He was a member of other unions, but he lifelong member of the New Orleans Musicians Union. That meant when you came to town and performed somewhere, you had to perform to union scale wages. It's a protection, labor protection for the musicians. And not only that, but your performance, where and when you performed, is put in the ledger. That ledger book exists. Al Jackson, who is the director of a little museum, great museum in New Orleans called Tremaine's Petite Jazz Museum, has a ledger. And you can go through it and see that Louis Armstrong came back to New Orleans dozens of times. And he doesn't have all the ledgers either, right? So he only has the ledgers from a certain block of time. But in that one relatively limited block of time, and I don't have the numbers handy, but I think it was about 14 times, Louis Armstrong came back to New Orleans and performed. Now, because New Orleans was segregated, and because black and white people were legally prohibited from occupying the same room while music was being performed, let me repeat that, as late as the 1950s, it was a jailable offense for a black person and a white person to occupy the same room while live music was being performed. And if anybody knows who Dr. John is, you know, that great iconic New Orleans musician, do a little search on YouTube, he'll tell you there was a club called the Dewdrop Inn, which was a black-owned club, black-operated, and the owner just ignored that rule. And if white people wanted to come and enjoy the music, they were welcome. If a young white kid wanted to get up on stage and play, that would have been Dr. John. He was welcome. And the police would come. Everybody would be handcuffed, taken off to jail. And this routine went on and on and on for years, but they wouldn't stand down. So my point is, Louis Armstrong came. He did not abandon his hometown. He did not abandon his community. He came back frequently, and he performed at the place where he was welcome, which was black clubs, black-only clubs, which were enforced by law. It wasn't like black people were saying, well, no white people can come in here. No, the sheriff would show up and take you to jail if you were in the wrong club. So he came back to the club. So it is a falsehood, absolute, that one's 100% documented, falsehood that Louis Armstrong abandoned his community in New Orleans. It is not proven by any stretch of the most flimsy imagination that Louis Armstrong's mother was a prostitute. There is no documentary evidence whatsoever that he was not born on July 4th. Doesn't exist. And believe me, a lot of scholars, a lot of serious scholars have asked to see it, and none of them have seen it. They've only seen this literally it's a scrap of paper, not official paper. It's handwritten, it's scrolled on there. That's the evidence they're using that he's wrong about his birth date. So, you know, things that are not known about Louis Armstrong, one of them I mentioned is that he stood up to Eisenhower. Now, why isn't that the dominant story about Louis Armstrong? Here's a man that not only was a great artist and a great entertainer, but had the courage to stand up to something that was wrong and take whatever consequences came his way. And there were consequences for him. He had gigs canceled. He had death threats. It wasn't a free ride. There were newspaper editorials all over the United States denouncing him for daring to speak up. So why isn't that the dominant secondary story? So we have the primary story, great musician. The other side, the powers that be, the social engineers, I think have decided that Louis Armstrong is not allowed to be elevated too high. So we're going to knock him down. We're going to say, his birthday, not really July 4th. His mother, prostitute. His connection to his community, tenuous, because he never even came back. All lies. Why isn't the real story about Louis Armstrong that he stood up to Eisenhower at the depths of that Cold War conformist madness of the 1950s? He knew what he was doing, and he didn't backpedal one bit. He had a chance to. He had a chance to say, oh, I was speaking out of turn. He had a chance to apologize. He had a chance to say, I didn't really mean what I said. How many times have you seen somebody say something true and then get in front of a new TV camera and a celebrity, and then sheepishly explain what he said? Armstrong was real clear. That's what I said, and that's what I meant. Why isn't that the dominant myth of Louis Armstrong? Another thing not well known about Louis Armstrong is that he was a huge funder of the civil rights movement in the 60s. And he did it privately. And he did it privately because he was concerned for his physical safety. He saw what happened when he was outspoken. He got real threats. He grew up in an environment where he knows that there are people out there capable of acting on those threats. And he decided he's going to help, but he's going to do it privately. People don't have to be a hero 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. He was a major funder of the civil rights movement in the United States. Where do you think all that money came from? Some of it came from, people of goodwill of all races and backgrounds, but some big checks came from people like Louis Armstrong. Why isn't that the dominant post-death story for Louis Armstrong? That he was a civil rights leader. Maybe not necessarily a leader, but a supporter of the civil rights movement. And then finally, Louis Armstrong made a lot of money. And he played all the time. He got paid very well. He could have lived anywhere. He could have lived in Malibu if they would have had him. There's all kinds of neighborhoods where he could have lived and lived large. He chose to live in a sort of plain vanilla working class neighborhood in Queens, New York. And I've been to his house. It's a solid house. It's a nice house. It's brick. It's well put together. It's not a mansion. His wife did some kind of wild things on the interior, but it's not a mansion. And he was well known to hang out in the neighborhood. By the way, this is a mixed neighborhood. This was not black only or white only neighborhood. It was a neighborhood of working people and from all backgrounds. And he was known to hang out, play with the kids, give them trumpet lessons. There's even photographs of him doing it. This was a great down-to-earth man. So why isn't that one of the stories that is pushed to this top when trying to explain who this was? So, if we go back full circle and we look at this Geronimo's skull story, it's just a fact of life that the powers that be are racist to the bone. And they're that way to cover their own historical tracks, because if we really looked at how they made their money, they were nothing short than monsters. If we look at how they're making their money now by basically ramping up the arms industry in the United States and skimming off the top and then creating all these boogeymen in the Middle East and then raining down, just death and destruction on civilians all over the Middle East, it's just a different version of the same game. And I don't think it's a coincidence that after Louis Armstrong died, this central, important beacon of all that's decent and good about America has had his biography twisted and distorted and perverted in the absence of any legitimate documentary evidence. So you now know something about Louis Armstrong you didn't know. In all likelihood, he was born on or around July 4th. He was a firecracker baby. There was no evidence his mother was a prostitute. And he stuck with his community and his people and his neighborhood and his city till the end. He was a courageous man that stood up against the powers that be, being willing to take the consequences of that. He was a major funder of the civil rights movement in the United States. And he was a decent, down-home, normal human being who did his best to uplift other people and treat everybody kindly and decently. He was not a wimp, but he was not a pushover. Don't think that. But he was kind and the young and the old. And by every account, this was not only a superstar entertainer, but also a very fine human being. So something to think about on July 4th. We, as Americans, should be proud to count Louis Armstrong as one of our own and one of our great examples of how to live an American life. And that's the Brass Check Podcast.
Now a story about one of America's most prestigious universities, a well-known family, and a legendary American Indian leader. It's a story about secrets and bones and maybe about grave robbery. It's an 85-year-old riddle, and the solution may be hidden in the windowless headquarters of a mysterious society. The secretive Skull and Bones Society was founded at Yale University in 1832, and its members have included the elite of the elite. President Bush is a third-generation bonesman. He follows his father, former President Bush, and his grandfather, former Senator Prescott Bush. That's where the story really gets interesting. Many years ago, it's said Prescott Bush and other bonesmen dug up the grave of the legendary Apache leader Geronimo in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Historian Mark Wortman is the author of a new book about Yale men who served in the Air Corps during World War I. While he was doing his research, he uncovered a 1918 letter from a bonesman that suggests the Geronimo story is more than just legend.
I found it and said, this is amazing. This is quite stunning to see this. It was laid out so clearly in straightforward language, saying we've got Geronimo's skull, femurs, and horse tack, and we've brought it back to the tomb, as they call it, in New Haven.
Located on the Yale campus, the tomb is the windowless sanctum of Skull and Bones. Although the rituals conducted inside are shrouded in secrecy, it's said that to this very day, new members must kiss a skull during initiation rites. Are they kissing the skull of Geronimo?
I think that at the time that they took it, they certainly believed that they had his skull, his femurs. Whether that's true or not, nobody at this point can know for sure until they bring it back out and let it be tested.
Geronimo's great-grandson, Harlan Geronimo, wants answers.
Wow.
I'm willing to volunteer and have my DNA taken and the DNA from the skull and do a genetic makeup.
Geronimo says he's hurt by the possibility his famous ancestors' bones were stolen and could possibly be a part of student rituals. So now the great-grandson of Geronimo is asking for help from the grandson of Prescott Bush.
I like to see, President Bush get involved in this issue and help return, the remains that was taken and also the artifacts that was taken back to the family, and have a proper burial, and restore the dignity back to my great-grandfather.
For now, the mystery continues. Does the club Skull and Bones have the remains of Geronimo? And if so, will it return them?
If they do have his skull, if they are using it in these kinds of rituals, they need to stop. And they need to understand that they're harming the legacy of Skull and Bones.
Correct. According to Apache tradition, when you desecrated a grave like of this nature, you upset the spirits. And sooner or later, the spirits will come after you. And ultimately, it's going to lead in death. That's what, I was told in our tradition.
Well, we were unable to get any comment on the story from the Skull and Bones Society, but we did get a comment from Yale. Here it is. Skull and Bones is an independent organization that is responsible for its own activities, finances, etc. Like a number of other organizations, Skull and Bones was founded by Yale students, but it's not a part of Yale. They have their own building and they have their own rules. The statement goes on to say, quote, if something illegal were going on, that would be the responsibility of the New Haven police, but we have no reason to think anything illegal is going on, unquote.
Yeah. Actually, it was kind of interesting. They put that little bit of Skull and Bones at the end regarding to Geronimo. Yo, that was pretty interesting though. One thing I could say about that video is that was that story about Louis Armstrong. Yeah, we need to know that. I just made a comment that was a great story about him. All that I didn't know about him, that he challenged the racist regime of this country. That's what's up. You know what I'm saying? And that there was some things that happened to him. Yeah, I was just doing a Google search and they said that he was born on August 4th. So the whole thing about him being born on July 4th, I thought that was quite profound. You know, like, wow. So, yeah. That definitely was interesting. Yeah, I may have to hold on. I'm gonna have to subscribe. I'm gonna subscribe to that channel. That's a great channel. And they only got 319 subscribers, so that's telling you something. You know how YouTube do. They don't put out videos on the front. They put out stuff in the back, which makes us hard to find. And advertisers don't advertise on most of our channels. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact that we speaking too much truth and that we're countering this fascist regime called America. You know what I mean? This corporation called America is not even really a nation state. It's basically a daggone corporation in which we're owing various countries money, in which in a way we're still under the British crown, if you really think about it. Because I don't think we even gained full independence from Great Britain to begin with. And then also we owe other countries such as China money in regards to trade. You know what I'm saying? We got a couple of other countries that have like some type of ownership of this country, such as the Arabs. You know, they own about 5 to 6% of this country. You know what I mean? So yeah. Oh yeah, the name of the channel is News Today, History Tomorrow. I'm gonna put that on. I'm gonna put that on in the chat here. Hold on. News Today, History Tomorrow. That's a great channel. Yes, that's definitely a great channel to subscribe to. Great channel to subscribe to, though. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I didn't even think. Yeah, I did. Shoot, there's so many truth channels out here. You know what I'm saying? It's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable how much truth you can find out here on this YouTube. And it's like a lot of this, man. If they delete the channels, at least we have it on here. You know what I'm saying? If they do delete the channel or delete any of these videos. Because, yeah. Because this is something right here. You know. Yeah, I seen the Elder just did a video on Joe Jackson about the death of Joe Jackson. May he rest in power. You know what I'm saying? I saw Cap put something in the chat about Joe Jackson passing away. Yeah, and it was so weird on I know some of y'all probably don't watch TV any, but at my friend's place, she got this big screen TV. Yeah, I saw something on Michael Jackson that was talking about, and it was weird. It was on the anniversary of his death, which has been 9 years that he supposedly died. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, wow, this is interesting. You know, and the attorney that represented Bill Cosby, Mesereau, he was the same attorney for Michael Jackson. Same attorney who got Michael Jackson off those sexual child molestation charges, those trumped up charges against Michael Jackson. Yeah, so it's very interesting though. Yeah, I see another person who did a video on Joe Jackson as well, saying that he died at the age of 89. So what's his name? Harvey from used to be known as Mr. Superboy. His channel was Your World now. His new channel, Your World. So let's see. Oh yeah, we got several people doing videos on that. So yeah, that was really wow, that was really all I wanted to present in this chat and what have you. Yeah, Taria Rain has done a video on it, on Joe Jackson's death. Oh, hold on, let me see. Taria Rain, Radical Sister. The ones that I see thus far that I'm subscribed to. Yeah, they all they just did videos. That's right, August Stream. They just did videos on Joe Jackson. Yep. Just did videos on Joe Jackson. So yeah, shoot, man. There's going to be a time where we're not going to be integrated with these Caucasoids any longer. And these Caucasoids are in fear of that. They are in fear of a black planet that Chuck D was saying when he was with Public Enemy. You know what I'm saying? These Caucasoids are in fear of a black planet. So that's the reason why they're unleashing all this terror and fury right now, because they're scared. They're scared that they won't be in existence anymore. So, yep, so that's pretty much it on that. Hold on, I don't. This may be significant or it may not be significant, but I'm gonna play this one too, and it's probably something that y'all may have caught up with. It's about this young woman who won in the Democratic primary against this longtime Democrat in New York State.
So it's been a couple of hours since we learned that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez defeated corrupt corporate Democrat Joe Crowley, and really the establishment, you can tell, is speechless. So in this video, I do want to get to the reactions, but first, my favorite video of the night is this video of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reacting to the news that she defeated Joe Crowley. I mean, that is just really, that's so heartwarming right there. I really, really like this video. Now, what did Joe Crowley do? He decided, you know, in his concession speech to sing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez a song. Literally. Yeah, so that happened. So, say what you will about that, but my favorite part about this news is that Donald Trump actually tweeted about this victory for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He didn't mention her by name, but he did basically say that Joe Crowley was mean to him, and he's glad that he lost. But I mean, buddy, if you thought that Joe Crowley was mean to you, wait until you get a true progressive in that seat. You haven't seen anything yet. Progressives aren't pushovers. We don't take your bullshit policies lying down. We actually fight back. So give it a couple of months. I think that Trump will probably be begging for Joe Crowley to return to Congress. Now, we're also seeing some reaction from the media, which I think are just fascinating. I mean, watching some of these clips are surreal. That's what I said on Twitter, because they're now finally having conversations about progressive momentum that they should have been having years ago. And this is one clip that really stood out to me with Don Lemon and a strategist.
This is a big upset here. What's going on?
This is a huge upset. Nobody thought that Joe Crowley was going down. Yes, there was some, noise on the left that there was going to be a real challenge. The Intercept really got behind Joe Crowley's progressive challenger. But there was no sense that this was going on. But this is not an isolated incident. In the 9th District in New York, Yvette Clarke is in a lot of trouble tonight. In Maryland, Governor Ben Jealous, who's the left-wing candidate in that race, is doing particularly well. So it does seem, if there was some argument before tonight that there wasn't a lot of energy on the progressive side of the Democratic Party, there certainly was this evening.
So let's talk about her a little bit more, okay, Harry? Because she is running obviously to his left, right? To Crowley's left. It says even with universal health care, a federal jobs guarantee, and the abolition of ICE headlining her demands, Crowley has a formidable liberal record to lean on. So she is young. She is young. She's also a minority candidate in a district that is now majority minority, and she's a woman in the year of the woman. But to me, it's amazing that Joe Crowley really didn't have a fire in the fence, right? He was a very liberal congressman, but he wasn't liberal enough. Yeah. What does this say to you about this race? So I saw you just before the show. You said this is big. We're paying attention to what happened in Staten Island, especially because of Grimm going to jail and all of that. Should we be, same question I asked Chris just moments ago, should we be paying more attention, do you think, to Democratic primaries instead of so much focus on the Republicans?
Absolutely. I mean, look, Democrats have a decent shot at taking control in November, but more than just for this year, I think as a preview of the 2020 primary season, the presidential race, and there could be a lot of energy on the left, and it does seem to me that you just can't be against Trump. You have to stand for something, at least in the primaries tonight.
He ranks 4th among House Democrats, and it was said that he could take over for Nancy Pelosi.
Exactly. He definitely could have, given how much trouble she is. And remember, Eric Cantor lost his primary about 4 years ago tonight. This is that. What that was on the Republican side is on the Democratic side. It's huge.
So, by and large, this was such a huge, monumental victory for progressives, and I still am honestly in disbelief that it happened. So we're going to continue to see the world react and see the Democratic Party establishment react, but understand they've been shaken to their core right now. They have no idea how to process this or handle this. I mean, everyone disregarded Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It was seen as a long-shot campaign, and we all knew that she was the underdog. But now you see people like Kathy Griffin tweeting about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, sharing articles about her, so you learn more about her. You see Joanne Reed admitting that, now they're going to have to do their homework. How about this? How about next time there's a progressive challenging an incumbent Democrat that you dismiss as a long shot? Maybe give them a chance. Give them some media coverage. So that way you're not inadvertently tipping the scales in favor of the corporate Democrat. That's your job as a journalist. So everyone in the country is going to learn Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's name now that she won. But what they're also going to learn is that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a movement. She has an army. I'm just so thrilled. So again, congratulations to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I just wanted to share some of the initial reactions to her huge political upset. This is a gigantic victory, and this really gives progressives the credibility that they deserve, and it puts us on a new level, really.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.
Hey everyone, David Dole here out in Portland, and I'm going to cover this incredible win from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez last night. Now, I'm going to do another video on this tomorrow that covers more of the media reaction, but I want to get out something quickly because the excitement over this win is still in the air, and I'm still feeling it. It was incredible. So let me first show you how she beat Joe Crowley. So she defeated him 57.5% to 42.5%, despite the fact that she was outspent 18-1. Now, before I dive a little deeper into this win, let me first show you her reaction after winning last night.
Basically. Yep. Hold on, I got another video for y'all might like too. Y'all probably may have seen this one too. Or of the elder.
Before I start the video, family, make sure you're looking at your notification and your subscribe button because YouTube is playing a lot of games. Please make sure you look at your notification and bell and your subscribe button. Peace, blessings, and love. Family, this video is going to be about Barack Obama and the reason the New World Order, the elites, elected him. Is that what you think he is? He's a Freemason. He worked with satanic bullshit, Baphomet, whatever they call that shit. This man was put in office to increase the gay agenda.
Yeah. Pretty much. Right. He was the gay people's president. I think we had talked about that one time.
He went over there in Kenya and tried to start that shit. They told him, no. He's supposed to be going back to Kenya on July the 18th. They going over to South Africa and try to promote that bullshit. Barack Obama never done nothing for Africa. He never done nothing for the American people of color, the melanated family. The only thing he did was sign the gay rights. That they can get married, and they can do this, and they can do that. And some people say he's a known choir boy. You know what I mean by choir boy. We get back to Barack Obama. Barack Obama was put in by the powers that be to try to program the people that we got a black president, everything gonna be all right. Over in Africa, he gonna do the same thing, try to promote that everything is all right. And those sellout leaders need to wake up over in Africa. And these sellout leaders, so-called in America, melanated leaders, need to wake up.
They need to
see what's going on.
Especially those congressional black caucasoids.
To help those black people. He ain't never talked about reparations. And yet there was giving reparations. He was giving reparations to the Jews over in Israel. That go to show you that
false
he cared
Jews
about us. No, he didn't.
Speak that, elder.
There ain't nothing he done for the city of Chicago. All that bullshit that's going on over there. He from there. Wasn't put in to help the melanated family. He was only put in to help his kind and the elites. And to raise homosexuality all over this planet, especially in Africa. That's right, family. But family, we're gonna cut this video short. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about Barack Obama. Was he for the black man or was he for the devil or the Satanists? Peace, blessings, and love to all the melanated family. Also, listen to this video, please subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. And the elder is out.
Elder the man. He even told Barack Obama who he really is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, buddy. Elder be getting it in too. And that was just a 4-minute video. He gave us all he gave us all that we need right there. You know what I'm saying? Yup. Yeah. So this is all just to let y'all know that integration was the biggest mistake we have ever made. And these old civil rights heads, a lot of them still don't sue it because they too busy drinking the white man's, drinking the Caucasoid man's lemonade. Because there ain't nothing pure about being white. Because white sure ain't right. Yep. So you know how that go. And like I said, the whole gay lifestyle thing and trying to force people to become gay. Professor Black Truth is one of the few channels that has actually come out and said it, which is why I was so honored to play that audio for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Because these faggots, these homosexuals, these transgenders, queers, and what have you, man, shoot, they're just coming out with it. It's like, shoot, yeah, y'all gonna appreciate, y'all gonna appreciate. Not only that are they saying it, not only are they saying you have to appreciate us, we're gonna force you to be like us. That's their whole agenda, which is why they putting stuff on children's channels. These little cartoons, have your little children watch it. They put a little something about a boy and a boy holding hands and a girl holding hands, just for a little snippet. Let's put a little snippet on there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. LGBT elemental P. That's right, Mitch. That's right. That's right, Queen. That's exactly what Professor Black Truth said. Yes. That's exactly what that is. Yeah. No, but a bunch of alphabet soup, bunch of mess. Exactly, Randy. He definitely was a white man in a black man's body. And you know, there's a couple other ones that are like that too. Oh man, Jesse Lee Peterson and Sheriff Clark, the biggest coon lattes I ever seen in my life. Oh man, these niggas are so much cooning. I would have thought that they were Caucasoids. I swear, now them two, they are the ideal black Caucasoids. Oh my goodness. Oh man. Hold on. Let me see. Cause there's a video there's a video that I saw on these two jokers. Not only want to get into Kamala, we already got Kamala Harris a little bit. Oh man. Oh man. Here's a video that Secular Talk did on Jesse Lee Peterson. Check this out, y'all. I have to play this one.
Gavin McInnes spoke to a guy named Jesse Lee Peterson. Now, Jesse is a black conservative, and listen, he's just a living caricature. That's what he is. Imagine a black guy whose sole purpose is to tell racist white dudes exactly what they want to hear. That's Jesse Lee Peterson. Now, if you think I'm overstating it or you think I'm not being fair, my guess is after this clip, you won't think that.
You ready for this? It's a doozy. I'm ready. It's 2018 in America. Does racism exist?
Absolutely not. And it has never existed.
Whoa!
It has never.
Whoa!
It's a made-up word.
What about the picture in the 60s with the German shepherds on the black guy, the civil rights movement, and the cops, and the guy like that?
Well, that's because you were having protests. Whenever you can have a protest today, and if people go out of control, you're gonna see the same thing. It was just a protest, and you're hearing this from a man. I grew up in Alabama. I grew up under the Jim Crow laws. I went to an all-black school. There were signs that says for colors only, for whites only.
That sounds pretty racist.
Yeah. But it wasn't racist. It was a law that was brought about by the Democrats. And they brought that law into effect and it separated people by law. But yet, most blacks and whites got along. they knew that all white people were not against black people. It was a law, and people just obeyed the law at the time. And when I was growing up, I had to pick cotton. The guys were taking out.
You were born on a plantation.
Have you ever picked cotton?
No, sir.
You have not lived until you pick cotton.
You're being too controversial for me. You're going to get my show taken off here. Getting to pick cotton.
It's fun.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah, sure it was fun to pick cotton. Yeah.
Because most blacks are so lazy now.
Oh, really?
The government taking care of them. And then a lot of them are born with single mothers only in the homes, and the mothers don't make them work. I said, I'm going to go to Alabama, buy some land, create a plantation, and I'm going to take the blacks back down there to show them how to work and be independent and earn their way. And all hell broke loose when I said, oh, he's for slavery, he's for that. But I knew what I meant by that.
Told you. Listen, I don't know to what extent he's playing character to get paid, because it's lucrative what he's doing. If you play the role of the black guy who really dislikes other black people and you want to tell old white racists what they want to hear, you're going to make a decent amount of money doing that. I don't know how much he's playing a character, and I don't know how serious he is. But either way, it is a sight to behold. So he says, not only is it that racism doesn't exist today, racism never existed. That's what he said. Racism never existed. Okay, where do we begin with that one? To the point that, oh, it doesn't exist today. Even that's not true. Now, you could say it's a lot less than it used to be. I think that's totally accurate to say there's a lot less racism today than there used to be, for sure. But it absolutely exists. I mean, the best example of it is, again, the resume study, where you have the exact same work history on two separate resumes. One has a traditional-sounding white name, one has a traditional-sounding black name. The white name gets about 50% more callbacks. So in other words, all else being equal, overwhelmingly the white person is preferred. What would you call that? I mean, I'm open to hearing different words to describe it. There was the online sales study where it's a black hand holding a product versus a white hand holding a product. Everything else about the product exactly the same. The white hand got way more people purchasing it from the white hand. That's another example. The giant discrepancy in the way mandatory minimums are imposed. Overwhelmingly, it's used for black people versus white people when they commit the same crime. The way the death penalty is imposed overwhelmingly goes to black people, even if a white person commits the same crime. White people sell drugs more often than black people. Black people get arrested more often for selling drugs than white people. Now, again, I'm not saying racism today is as bad as it was back in the day, but it certainly exists. And even people who are far-right kind of people, who generally are against left-wingers on issues of race, I think they can admit that racism still exists to an extent. I mean, it's not totally gone. And now we're just talking about today. He said it, quote, never existed. He said it's a made-up word, never existed. Racism never existed. What would you call slavery? What would you call slavery? Yeah, but there were some white people who were slaves also, and then there were black people who enslaved other black people. And that means that the concept of racism was never a real thing, and that when it was a white person owning black people, which was the majority circumstance in the U.S., that wasn't racist? Okay, put that aside. What do you call Jim Crow and segregation? You literally separated the races. What do you call that? What do you call that? Oh, no, it's separate but equal. Yes, I'm sure. Well, of course, as it's been proven, it's demonstrable that back then, the black schools were massively underfunded. When it comes to the income levels, it was way lower in black communities. So the idea that it's separate but equal, it literally was not equal. It just was not. And then you get into the history of lynchings and things of that nature. I'm really having to sit here and argue that racism not only exists, but it existed under fucking segregation and Jim Crow and slavery. Are you fucking kidding me? I have to make that argument today. Racism absolutely never existed, said Jesse Lee Peterson. And then he says, well, listen, I was raised under Jim Crow in Alabama, and there were colored water fountains and white water fountains. And Gavin McInnes even says, that sounds pretty racist. He's like, no, it wasn't. How is that not racist? How is that not racist? The white people didn't want the dirty blacks sipping from the same water fountain. How is that not racist? I don't understand how you could think that's not racist. You know, it seems to me like he's either acting or he yearns for the good old days of his childhood. For whatever reason, he thinks they were good old days. But they objectively weren't. You know, go ask the family members of the people who were fucking lynched because they looked at a white woman the wrong way. And then he said most blacks and whites got along under Jim Crow and segregation. And, of course, the little cherry on top is most blacks are lazy. What a fucking insane claim to make. By the way, what is the unemployment rate in the black community overall? I know Trump likes to brag it's the lowest unemployment rate ever. I don't know if that's true, number one. Number two, even if it is true, my guess is that the trends with the black community are the same with everybody else, which is mostly lower paying jobs that are being created, so it's really nothing to brag about. But obviously the overwhelming majority of black people are employed. So they're working, but somehow they're still lazy, Jesse Lee Peterson. It's almost like you would call them lazy no matter what. You're trying to tell racist white people exactly what they want to hear. You know, that's what it sounds like to me. And then finally, I love how he says, it's not racist. So Jim Crow and segregation and the colored water fountains, that's not racist. He said that's a law that the Democrats passed. As if, like, mentioning the fact that Democrats were in favor of that stuff somehow, like, makes it better. Like, when Dinesh D'Souza makes that point, his argument is it was the Democrats who were the racists because they were in favor of segregation back then. Your argument is the Democrats were in favor of segregation and it was awesome. And it's somehow not racist. Mind-blowing. I mean, he reminds me of the Chappelle skit where it's like the black KKK guy. He really reminds me of that. It's pretty fucking hilarious.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh, Clay Bixby.
Doesn't change the argument one way or the other.
Oh my gosh.
Just so you know,
He just referenced Caden Bixby.
There was what was called a political realignment that happened when Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act.
Great analogy.
So they continued about that, and they, you know, Dinesh D'Souza's whole career is based on ignoring the fact that a political realignment is a concept that exists and it happens from time to time. So, Jesse Lee Peterson, I
love it when Caucasoids drop on these black Caucasoid dudes. Talking about racism doesn't exist. Wow. Yep, that is. You know, the thing with Phil from the Advice Show, he's too nice of a guy. I like his content, but he's just too nice of a guy at times. He says that he's and I think him being a Christian caused him to be too much of a guy towards people like Jesse Lee Peterson and Sheriff Clark. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, see, that was a bad look by Phil. I mean, shoot. Had Jesse Lee Peterson would have been on Roland Martin's show, Jesse Lee Peterson would have really had Roland Martin by his nuts. You know what I'm saying? Man, I mean, Roland Martin, you should have seen him when he did that interview with Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer had him by his nuts. And Richard Spencer is a pathetic-ass Caucasoid beast. Oh, my God. He's the worst of the worst. But, see, but Richard Spencer is wickedly smart. That's the thing with him. He's wickedly smart. But the thing is, just like the rest of these Caucasoids, he lives in a delusion as well. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you did, M. Mitch? Oh, I bet he was shocked when you blast him on Twitter like that, like, feel like Phil wasn't gonna have anything to say. You know how he is. And that's probably that. I don't want to talk about Miss Psychology again, but the one who called Miss Psychology, you know who I'm talking about. kind of has some type of respect for Phil. You know what I'm saying? But man, I mean, come on. I mean, some of our people, man, we got to toughen up. We can't have Caucasoids like this throwing down black Caucasoids like Jesse Lee Peterson, and another name, Joy Reid. Joy Reid definitely doesn't represent us. She's definitely not black first. I could tell you that right now. You know what I'm saying? She's up there bar fumbling and trying to retract some of her comments about what she said about homosexuals and all this BS. Joy Reid don't need to do none of that. You know what I'm saying? If people don't like you, Joy Reid, don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to retract what you said. You said what you said, and you meant what you said, and leave it at that. You ain't got to apologize. Bump all that. Bump all that. No. Bump all that. Because you meant to do it. You know, and Sheriff Clark, I don't even want to get with his sorry behind. Oh, that's another black Caucasoid I cannot stand. Him and Jesse Lee Peterson, they might as well be cousins. They might as well be in the same daggone family tree. Yeah, you might as well send both of them to that white civil rights rally and speak in front of those crackers and Caucasoids. Have both of them speak in front of them at that white civil rights rally. Yeah, have them say, yeah, I love you, Caucasoids. Yeah, I'm gonna fight for y'all civil rights. Yes. Yes. We need to fight for y'all civil rights. But the thing is now, since Jesse Lee Peterson doesn't believe that racism doesn't exist, he has to, if he was to go into that white civil rights rally, he's gonna have to say that, I'm sorry for all of you Caucasoids who have been discriminated against. I just want you to know that racism does exist when it comes to you guys being discriminated against. Yeah. I could see Jesse Lee Peterson saying something like that, you know? Yeah. That's a good nickname for him. David Soulboy Clark. Yes. Yes, Doc Void. That's a good nickname for him. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dominant Silk. Oh, Lord. That's right, Doc Void. That's another pair of black Caucasoids that should not be tolerated. Oh, boy. Dominant Silk. Exactly, August Dreams. The coons and coonettes that are pervaded on the television. The television is not and never will be black first. Facts. Exactly. Well, you know that you know they'll never be accepted into our kingdom. Forget that. Oh man. Yeah, I agree with you on that, M. Mitch. Yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, there's so many coons and coonettes who think like them. It's sad. They're all around us. Bring out the sage. You got that right. Oh man. I tell you, just talking about them, it's just unbelievable. These Negroes. Yeah. Oh man. Well, you know, it makes you think the gods, it makes you kind of think that what the gods were thinking when they created Jesse Lee Peterson. Oh man, because whatever environment he grew up in and how he became and how he could just be so coonish. Oh my God. Oh, I just can't. Ooh, that's the type of stuff that makes your head hurt. Like, yo, I'm having a migraine. No. Ooh, woo. I guess when one of those Caucasoids passed away, it came back into a black man. Maybe that's what it was. D.W. Griffith reincarnated. Oh man. Oh wow. Oh wow. Yep. But these people are the reason why we should have never integrated. You see how these black Caucasoids act. And everything that has a D in its name, see, like everything that has a D in its name is negative. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to these Democrats, when it comes to these, when it comes to dying and death, destruction, sister, something about that letter D is just so negative. You know what I'm saying? It's just so negative. Wow. Exactly, August Dreams. And the sad part, it doesn't get them anywhere. It doesn't get them anywhere. And it's like, and another black Caucasoid, I'll tell y'all, this coonette named Candace Owens. Another coonette that we should exterminate once we get our own community. Oh my goodness. Once we get our own nation. Candace Owens. She's another terrible one. And she just came out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. Let's see how long she's going to be on TV. They probably might drop her like they did Stacey Dash. So, yeah. So, that was all I want to say to y'all, you know. And I don't know if I'm going to do one later today. If not later today, I'll probably end up doing one tomorrow. But yeah, other than that, y'all be easy and continue to keep it black first. And of course, I'm gonna be out. Peace.